Wet season continues over Florida, with a few areas getting above normal rainfall and some not quite as much. How will that change in the coming weeks? These answers and more in the Florida edition of the Water Resources Outlook. Let's first look at the current 14-day departure from normal graphic, and this is since our last Water Resources Outlook. And as you can see, over the southeast, we've had a little bit below normal, a little bit above normal. This has been more typical type summer rainfall, where we get these pop-up type thunderstorms that move into the area. And we've had a little bit of frontal type systems, but for the most part, it's been pop-up type thunderstorms. So you can see that it's been a little different than what we saw earlier in the year, earlier in the summer anyway, because we go back all the way into before June, in the May time frame, and you can see we had much above normal rainfall over most of the southeast. The only places that are below normal are the east coast of Florida, a little bit in South Alabama and Central Alabama. Much of Mississippi has been below normal. So you can see where we've had most of the heavy rainfall. And so when we look at the rank, now this is the June 2013 regional ranks, what we do is we look over the last 119 years. And where does the rain place for this year's June? 2013 is number 117. So we've actually seen very heavy rainfall. And if we look over the last 3 months, what you can see is that over much of the southeast, many states in the southeast, we're in the very high parts of it. 117 for North Carolina, so very close to the wettest. Virginia is 114, South Carolina 116, and even Mississippi, which we saw in the last couple weeks, has been a little bit below normal, and had been below normal, is still 99th for that time period. So really, over much of the southeast over the last 3 months, we have seen very heavy rainfall. So what has that done to the rivers? Well, this is an instantaneous real-time stream flow for today, and what you can see is that the blues, which is the above 90%, the greens are near normal, and then something in between, that light blue is the in between, and most of the southeast stream flow is in that area. The only area which is not, which we've talked about in the past couple, has been just north of Tampa area, where we have a couple of rivers that are still fairly low in that area. So I wanted to show this because it's been a long time since we've been able to show this. The U.S. Drought Monitor is empty. There is nothing in the U.S. Drought Monitor. We go to 1 year ago, if you look at the chart, and the D0 to D4 group had 67.25% of our area in drought. And so right now, there is nothing in drought. Now, we may not get to see this again, but for now, we'll enjoy it. We may not show it again until we have drought in the area.
Let's begin with the short-term outlook, which takes us through Friday, July 26th. We begin with the basic flow aloft on July 23rd, and you see that we generally have a trough across the eastern United States. And this area of troughiness across our area has been responsible for a lot of the rainfall that we've seen lately, with energy moving across the flow from northwest to southeast across our area, providing some areas of heavy rain routinely from day to day. This pattern will gradually change for the next couple of days as we get unusually dry air from the north to work its way into our area, which will help to shut off the precipitation across portions of Alabama and Georgia, and maybe even the Carolinas for at least a couple of days. By the 26th of July, you see that we think get a little bit more active with the residual trough that we were just discussing across the Carolinas anchored in place, and a shortwave energy across the southern and central plains working its way towards the east. There's a discrepancy in the models right now about how significant that shortwave trough will be, with some of the models suggesting that we could see much heavier rain across Alabama and Georgia as a result of this trough than some of the other models. So there is still a lot of uncertainty even in the next couple of days. Nevertheless, the total basin precipitation from Wednesday, July 24th through Tuesday, July 30th, this also includes the midterm, shows that we have several areas of precipitation and nothing real well-defined in terms of our rainfall, but generally expecting areas of scattered heavy rainfall across the Gulf Coast into the central Florida Peninsula and also along the coastal Carolinas extending up towards the Blue Ridge Mountains. Moderate rainfall generally expected in all other locations with the exceptions of perhaps the coastal South Carolina into southeast Georgia area, coastal plain, as well as maybe extreme northwest portions of our area across southern Virginia. However, there is a lot of uncertainty across both that region and central Alabama, partially due to the shortwave trough I was just discussing. And in the Carolinas, there is also uncertainty about how the pattern will evolve across that area over the next several days, especially into the weekend. So in the interim, still expecting widespread, moderate, with potentially scattered heavy rainfall, and maybe even some isolated extreme, although that's very difficult to predict this time of year. So persistent trough and embedded energy generally means widespread rain for the period. So we go to the long-term outlook, which takes us through August 6th. You see that on July 31st, the basic flow loss still shows a general trough, a weak trough across the southeast United States. And in that kind of pattern, we generally see better coverage of thunderstorms across the area, with a real difficult time predicting specific locations of heavy rainfall. However, in the middle of the long-term outlook, the trough does become amplified, and we do expect a cold front to come through the area very slowly. So that slow-moving cold front will help to focus showers and thunderstorms, and we should expect to see some areas of heavier rainfall as a result of that. However, as we go towards August 6th, you see that we have the ridge across the west gradually possibly building towards the east, more towards the central and southern Mississippi River Valley. And as a result of that, we should start to see a decrease in our thunderstorm coverage if this were to verify, with the best chances of rainfall confined to the Carolinas, especially North Carolina and southern Virginia. So the total precipitation generally through August 6th, you should expect to see some areas, some stripes of heavier rainfall, potentially in the Carolinas as well as across Alabama and Georgia. But mostly widespread moderate rainfall is still not out of the question through this period. But generally above normal precip early in the period and then near normal late in the period.
So now combining a little bit of the climatology with what Josh just went over with the short-term forecast, one of the things I've been looking at over the last month or so is the Madden-Julian oscillation. And one of the things that it does is it impacts the equatorial region, and it has an impact on the hurricane season. So where you see the square up there and the areas, we have western anomalies were weakened over the eastern Pacific and persistent over the tropical Atlantic. So what that means is that the westerlies were stronger in the Atlantic, so it inhibited the formation of any kind of storms out in the Atlantic early in July or just right in that time period. And right now, based on the forecast, it looks like the next couple of weeks going to the end of July that pattern will persist. And so the likelihood of any storms coming out of at least even the western Atlantic and even the Caribbean looks unlikely right now. So it looks like the tropics are going to stay quiet at least for the next couple of weeks. As for the 1 month outlook, now this is for August. This just came out last Thursday. And right now, based on an active tropical season, and currently we're getting kind of a feedback loop where we have lots of moisture to work with in the southeast. So any kind of front or anything that comes through, or even afternoon heating, brings up many of these thunderstorms, which is why we're seeing daily thunderstorms in many places. That will probably continue into August. And then as we look at the 3 month outlook, which goes August, September, October, that will likely continue also, and part of it is because we're still looking for an active hurricane season. Our ENSO conditions are neutral, and so as we look, that won't have much of an impact on our hurricane season, and so that's part of the reason that we see the above normal chances for precipitation from tropical weather possibly. We're looking November, December, and January, so this is our winter time frame, and right now it's hinting towards a little bit of dry weather. Before and after, it still looks, at least before it looks above normal. After it looks near normal, but in that time period, it looks like right now below normal, and that's just the models that it's talking about, so we'll have to see as we get a little bit closer if those change. So the bottom line for Florida, in the short term, a normal rainy season will continue probably across the state. It looks like, we've had normal rainfall. It's been spotty. The East Coast has been a little bit drier, but for the most part, the state had a pretty normal summer, maybe slightly above normal in some places. As for the long term, the peak of tropical season is just around the corner. The peak comes around middle of September, and we really start to ramp up sometime in the early to middle August. So our next water resources outlook will be on August 8th, and we'll be able to take a closer look at the tropical season. Thank you for listening to this week's edition of the Water Resources Outlook. Remember, you can find much of this information at our website at weather.gov/SERFC. Also, come and visit our Facebook page where we will provide notifications of products we issue. Feel free to comment and pass that information along. And if you have any questions or comments, please contact me at the email address todd.hamel@noaa.gov.